During Reconstruction, the Republican Party controlled, at least for some time, 10 out of the 11 former Confederate state governments. Only Virginia had no Republican state government. Nevertheless, how did the Republicans get their votes when it came to state-level governments? They got it from three different sources: carpetbaggers, scalawags, and blacks. Carpetbaggers are Northerners who came down into the South, allegedly carrying cheap suitcases, i.e., bags made out of carpet, where they would rob the South blind and put all of their ill-gotten gains into this bag and then go back up to the North. Really, this isn't the case. They were not ever in that large of a number. And in fact, the vast majority of them were morally upright people. Some of them were bad, some of them were corrupt, but nevertheless, the vast majority of them were just run-of-the-mill people. Many of them were former army officers who stayed behind, and many of them were also teachers for the Freedmen's Bureau. A second group of Republican voters in the South were scalawags, or white Southerners who aligned themselves with the Republican Party. Now, why in the world would they want to do that? Well, it's because of the fact that many of the Southerners did not agree with secession. So it was logical for these men to align themselves with the new Republican governments. However, these people were seen as traitors, not just to the South, but also to the white race. Finally, blacks. The blacks are going to provide many votes for Republican office holders at the state level. However, they're never a majority within the state governments. They didn't have any sort of governors. There were a very small number of office holders throughout Reconstruction. The vast majority of those that held office were actually previously educated men. They were not straight from slavery. But nevertheless, they did vote, and they provided many of the votes for the Republican Party in the South. Now, these governments were highly corrupt, and they taxed the heck out of people. They're highly corrupt, but this is really not unusual back then. Corruption was truly rampant. Remember, this is right after a war, and wars don't bring out the moral fabric of a society, especially when it's fought on its own soil. Corruption was bipartisan, bisectional, and biracial. It was something that was done by everyone and everywhere. None of it makes it right, but at least it puts it into context. Put on top of this the fact that these governments also highly tax the people. Why would they do that? Well, remember, the South is in ruins, and they needed to repair the nation. The free population of the South increased by 4 million people, and most of these, or the vast majority of them, were uneducated. They needed schools. They needed to set up a public school system in order to educate these children. So money was needed, and the only way a state government can raise money is through taxation. But nevertheless, all of this, the corruption and the high taxation, gave the Republicans' critics lots of ammunition. And in fact, they're going to start organizing themselves in order to try to get rid of these Republican governments. The first step, get together, unify with one another. But you got to unify under a different name. The Democratic name is not a very good one at the time because of the fact that it was identified with treason and secession. Therefore, they came up with a new name, the Conservative Party, or the Redeemers. What are they going to do in terms of redeem? I mean, do they have coupons? No, of course not. They're going to redeem. They're going to save the South from Northern Republican rule. So what they're going to do is they're going to band together, and they're going to slowly but surely start winning elections, or at least try to reduce the Republican voting base, slowly but surely, to the point that Republican state governments would start to falter and collapse.